the empty seat at the dinner table, children who were forced to grow up without their mother or their father, parents who would never know the feeling of their child's embrace, nearly 3,000 citizens taken from us, leaving a gaping hole in our hearts. On September 11th, 2001, in our time of grief, the American people came together. We offered our neighbors a hand, and we offered the wounded our blood. We reaffirmed our ties to each other and our love of community and country. On that day, no matter where we came from, what God we prayed to, or what race or ethnicity we were united as one American family. We were also united in our resolve to protect our nation and to bring those who committed this vicious attack to justice.
The United States Navy SEALs are undoubtedly some of the best Tier 1 operators anywhere in the world, tasked with keeping America safe, protecting its assets, and offering the U.S. government plausible deniability when taking out enemies. But much like the SAS, Israeli Shayetet 13, and even Delta Force back home, becoming a SEAL, or Navy Special Forces operator, is not a simple walk in the park. It takes years of training, dedication, and sacrifice to one day earn the trident and become a United States Navy SEAL. This is the U.S. Navy Special Operations Forces selection training and how these sailors have become immortalized in movies and popular culture. Welcome to BUDS. Although not formally formed until 1962, the United States Navy SEALs can trace back their origins to the Second World War. With the U.S. entering the war in 1942, the need for an amphibious assault unit assisting in beach landing was found to be lacking in the U.S. Army. Finally, the Joint Army, Marine Corps, and Navy Amphibious Scout and Raider School was established in 1942 at Fort Pierce, Florida, essentially forming a joint Marine-Navy assault group. Following a year of training, the code-named Special Service Unit Number 1 was finally established in the summer of 1943, assisting in various operations such as Operation Overlord, assisting the British in the Normandy beach landings. Various other missions would allow this force to build a name for themselves, especially with the creation of additional underwater demolition teams, UDTs. But we are not going to bore you with too much of the history, and if you'd like an in-depth video on the history of the SEALs, make sure to let us know in the comments below. The first real announcement of the Navy SEALs came from none other than President John F. Kennedy, who announced that he was spending $100 million to strengthen U.S. Special Forces operations. Many still credit the former president with being responsible for creating the SEALs. However, it was actually Admiral Arleigh Burke, the chief of naval operations at the time, who suggested the establishment of guerrilla and counter-guerrilla forces in 1961. The first two forces, which would eventually become SEAL Team 1 and 2, were established the following year. In fact, their first missions were simple beach reconnaissance, done around communist Cuba, but this would later transform into small team operations, mainly focused on guerrilla warfare during the Vietnam War. But what is even more fascinating is the fact that just a few years later, and during the Cold War, the United States established SEAL Team 6. This didn't mean that the Navy had 6 of these teams, but it was merely named to throw off Russian intelligence services and overestimate the special forces of the United States. SEAL Teams 4 and 5 were later established, all taking part in the invasion of Grenada, but where the Navy SEALs really gained notoriety was some of its roles during the invasion of Iraq in the early 2000s. Teams such as SEAL Team 3 with Chris Kyle and later SEAL Team 6, who took down Osama bin Laden, would become iconic, creating a legacy all under the slogan of "The only easy day was yesterday." But today, the SEALs have become a mainstream unit, and with tons of former operators now speaking out, the mystique surrounding the SEALs has largely disappeared. Replacing it is perhaps the mystery of Delta Force. But many of you watching this video might have asked yourself what you need to do to become a U.S. Navy SEAL. It is not like the rest of the U.S. military where you simply sign up and join the process. Or is it? Well, first of all, there is the problem of eligibility. The U.S. Navy SEALs only accepts candidates between the ages of 18 and 27, who have a clear record and are in the best possible physical condition. Applicants need to be U.S. citizens, and they need to have at least 20/25 vision, but 20/40 is recommended. A basic physical test, or PST, needs to be completed to ensure the applicant is in the best possible health, and they are not carrying anything that could become a problem later down the line. Moreover, a 4-year degree is also recommended, but not mandatory, as the Navy has been seen giving some leniency to those with a lot of experience. In layman's terms, if you don't want to study and earn a degree, you need to spend a few tours abroad proving your work ethic and dedication. Finally, you need to enlist in the Navy, or at least apply to the United States Navy in order to be eligible for becoming a SEAL. Once again, this rule is not set in stone, and many SEALs have been adopted from other military branches due to their specific skills or experience. But all of these requirements are merely to earn the opportunity to try out for the SEALs. And once we get into the rigorous training process and deeper scrutiny placed on these applicants, you will find out just how hard it actually is to become a U.S. Navy SEAL. Once all the administrative requirements have been fulfilled, the PST or physical screening tests need to be completed. According to what we could find, this is the minimum requirements. Swim 500 yards, 457 meters, in 12.5 minutes or less, followed by a 10-minute rest. Do 42 push-ups in under 2 minutes, followed by a 2-minute rest. Do 50 sit-ups in under 2 minutes, followed by a 2-minute rest. Do 6 pull-ups, followed by a 10-minute rest. Run 1.5 miles, 2.4 kilometers, in less than 11 minutes, but exceeding them is recommended if you want to stand out from the rest of the competition. Once an applicant has managed to overcome all of this, the real fun begins, and this is where about 70 to 80% of all applicants choose to rather leave the training program or drop out due to being unable to complete some of the challenges. But what are these challenges? Following the rigorous screening process, the real hard work starts. All applicants must attend a 24-week school, known as Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL BUD-S School, a basic parachutist course, and then the 26-week SEAL Qualification Training Program. This means that it could take up to a year of training for an applicant before they are even considered a SEAL, and it could be up to 2 years before these SEALs actually see combat for the first time. BUD-S, as many SEALs call it, is the first program in the pipeline, and it starts with 3 weeks of orientation, where prospective SEALs spend most of their time studying. Once they've finished, a 7-week physical conditioning program kicks off, and this is where most SEALs often drop out. Not only does it include basic skills, but it pushes these prospective SEALs to their absolute physical and mental limits. During these 7 weeks, the infamous Hell Week also takes place, which often symbolizes hazing. Applicants need to overcome sleep deprivation, extreme physical challenges, and psychological pressure, while having to endure the frigid cold waters near the Naval Amphibious Base out in Coronado, California. Instructors will not only mock these applicants, but often encourage them to drop out. It is usually the week with the highest dropout rate, and many SEALs feel that once someone has completed Hell Week, they will more than likely make it to becoming a U.S. Navy SEAL. BUD-S will also include a diving course, which takes about 7 weeks, while another 7 weeks is spent focusing on land warfare. Finally, candidates are flown to the next test, Tactical Air Operations in San Diego, California. This 3-week program focuses on the parachuting aspects, where candidates are taught to free fall and conduct the various forms of parachuting. Only a handful of candidates make it to this level, where they are then told that they have completed the basic, elementary level training needed to have the opportunity to one day become a Navy SEAL. What follows is something called SEAL Qualification Training, SQT, which is another 26-week course that teaches candidates the ins and outs of advanced warfare. According to the Navy, this includes things like weapons training, close quarters combat, small unit tactics, land navigation, demolitions, unarmed combat, cold weather training in Kodiak, Alaska, medical skills, and maritime operations. Before graduating, students also attend survival, evasion, resistance, and escape training, SERE training. Finally, the candidate graduates and is now fully acknowledged as a U.S. Navy SEAL by receiving the coveted trident. But finishing the test and qualifying to be a Navy SEAL is only half of the process, and it still doesn't mean that a SEAL will be accepted into a team. Following the training weeks, SEALs are not necessarily deployed to a specific SEAL team immediately. The Navy SEALs often have a large board where they put the pictures of the candidates, and this is used by experienced SEALs to choose whether or not they want a specific person as part of the team. It can be quite disheartening when someone is not selected by a SEAL team, but each person who qualifies will eventually be assigned to a specific team. Fortunately, those who find themselves home with one of the established SEAL teams will be deployed to wherever the team is stationed. They will then start what is known as SEAL Troop, TRP, training, before entering the deployment cycle. This is usually a 12 to 18-month cycle, where SEALs are deployed to specific areas while undergoing various forms of training that will inevitably make them mission-ready. But SEALs by themselves are not a jack of all trades. Each person is usually a specialist in a specific discipline, and all contribute together to ensure that a SEAL team has all the necessary skills for a mission. These are some of the skills many individuals in the U.S. Navy might learn. As you can see, it is quite an extensive list that covers virtually every aspect of what a mission might require. In fact, each SEAL team is made up of a combination of these skilled individuals, which makes it much easier to eventually complete missions. So, why does SEAL training require so much effort, and why is it so hard? By looking at some of the missions conducted by the United States Navy SEALs, especially the nature of these missions, it is very clear why training and selection is so hard. Mental and physical toughness are of the utmost importance, and to give you an idea of why, you can simply look at the nature of these operations. Usually, the SEALs are deployed to conduct missions that no one knows about. Operation Neptune Spear, which involved taking down Osama bin Laden, was undoubtedly a critical mission for U.S. safety and security. However, the target was located right in the heart of Pakistan, with the Pakistani government often being criticized for its sympathy towards Al-Qaeda and some of its assets. No one knew whether or not the Pakistani government would assist U.S. Special Forces, or whether they might tip bin Laden off, bringing a decades-long intelligence operation to an end. If you ask many of the SEALs themselves, they truly believed that this might be a suicide mission. And with the United States using troops who technically didn't exist, they could have claimed that they had no knowledge of the operation if things went south. Moreover, knowing that you might not return from the mission is already stressful enough, requiring these SEALs to show a level of unrivaled mental toughness. But as things went wrong in the operation, specifically the destruction of the first helicopter, SEALs needed to be physically tough to endure the onslaught, while using their own mental acumen to figure out a new way to ensure that all SEALs remained safe while exfiltrating from the mission. Moreover, the risk of a SEAL being caught while having a ton of highly classified information in their minds could be another big problem. If interrogations are performed, the operator should be able to fully endure whatever it is they need to endure and not give up any U.S. secrets. Now, the big question is whether you think you will be able to overcome Navy SEAL training and join the most elite Tier 1 unit in the world. This is certainly not something everyone can do, but it is a real accomplishment for those who do eventually make it through Hell Week. Make sure you are subscribed to our channel, and let us know in the comments if you'd like to learn more about U.S. Tier 1 units.